saw my ex again. I've been friends with my ex for a year and a half now. And we hung out for the first time in a while. She said, "I love you." In the 2 days we spent time together. I fell in love with her again after all the time I spent moving on. Our chemistry was clearly still there. The spontaneous silliness, the way she used to smile at me, our old jokes. It was like nothing changed between us. Yet everything else has. During that first day we spent chatting. Our conversation was sewn together. With the tossing back and forth of a stuffed animal. Who knew how much could be veiled beneath such a simple thing? A lingering romantic tension from our past now in the form of a flying stuffed dinosaur hitting my face. When instead it should be her lips locking with mine. She laid in her bed and I sat in her chair, just enough distance between us. "Would you get back with me?" I gave a half-hearted answer and we kept talking. Then there was silence. "I should take you home now." And so she did. Before I got out the car she told me to go to her window so she could tell me something. I would get back together. And she drove off. A couple days later she picked me up to take us to work. It reminded me of before. Every day in high school. She would pick me up to go to school and when she'd come down the road, I'd smile and hop up and down in excitement to see her. And I'd get to see her smile. This time I just waited like a normal person. Oh, how things change. Sat next to her and we went on our way. It was a 40-minute drive. We are both in the Army National Guard and it was our monthly drill. A happy excuse to see her. So happy that the whole speech I've prepped in advance vanished. I had 40 minutes to travel back in time. To not only love her but to be in love with her. The way she laughed at the silliness, like when I thought she said, "I'm a turtle," when she actually said, "I'm matured." Or how her smile said, "I love you." A bright contrast to her face when she broke up with me. Our old jokes were new again. Our nicknames, our memories, and even the memories we made without each other. I could finally admit to her how I always find an excuse to talk about her to all of my friends. And I was so happy to see her smile when I told her. Or how much joy I felt when she wanted me to call her the pet name I used to say every day. I was no longer in love with a memory, an idea, or a feeling. It was her. And it would always be her. Despite my own desire, we arrived at our destination. And I had to leave first since I had an earlier hit time. But as I got out, I expressed how I felt in the only way I could. Because she had a boyfriend. And I knew how this would end. But I wanted it anyways. "I really, really like you," I said. She turned around, with her window down, smiling that loving smile. "I love you." Just like before. And I could only keep walking forward cause I had a job to do. Soon enough work would end and we were back in a car together. She didn't want to eat out anymore and instead insisted that we go to her dorm and then take me home. After I failed to convince her to go get dinner with me. We started off and this time it was different. Cause it was ending. We arrived at her campus and went to her dorm. I signed in and we had to hunt for a guy's bathroom in a girl's dorm. We then took the elevator to her floor and we joked with a stranger, and when the elevator opened, I started to leave until my ex had to bring me back. And she laughed at how stupid I was. I was stupid because I was so hopelessly in love with her. We got to her room finally and we changed. An awkward joke about how we've done more than this before. A joke about how my shorts were too short. I looked around awkwardly at her room, noticing things. Things like the stuffed animal duck I'd given her that sat on her desk. Stealing glances. Typical stuff exes do when they're hanging out in a room alone together. I turned around and got dressed, but a part of me didn't want to. A part of me wished she watched. I wanted her to see. I finished and sat on her bed and we talked a little more and she finished up. And my time was ending. "Here, see if this shirt smells like me." She handed me one of her shirts. She knew how much I was infatuated with her smell. We had to go, or at least I had to. So we left and she scampered to the car cause it was raining and I followed suit. And our time together was fleeting and of course it was raining. I didn't want our time together to end. Everything she said signaled we should be together. "You should transfer here." Our relationship was pretty perfect, her I almost broke up with my BF. I love you. Expect life isn't always perfect. She had her life. I wish she could drop it and we could be together. Make it work for the sake of love. But life happened. Time's arrow marched forward. I'm sorry I did this to you, she said. It wasn't her fault though. I knew how this would end and yet I wanted it. I wanted the what if, the maybe. Hope. Even if it isn't real. I could tell she meant it. I believed that she loved me. I squeezed my eyes real hard. Stop that, she said, cause she knew that I had started to cry a bit. We arrived and our time together was over. I stalled trying to avoid this bitter end. I stared at her. Before I left, she let me have one last hug. One last time I get to shove my face in her hair and neck and hold her. And then I left. I'm sorry things worked out this way, but it was nice to see you, were her last words. And then our little time travel adventure was over. I promised her I wouldn't cry. I'm not sure if I'm proud that it's a promise I've kept. But at least I kept my promise.